Shalom. This is Adasabat Saiwan, returning with part 3 of the last 7 years of the end times. And this is looking at the last 3.5 years of those 7 years. Now, the previous studies, part 1 and part 2, we looked at the first 3.5 years, and I would strongly encourage you to please look at those 2 studies before you venture to look at this particular study. Because in this particular study, we're going to look at what the northern kingdom will have to endure in their exodus while they are in the wilderness. So let's get started. We have looked at the first half of the 7-year end times period. Now let us look at the second half, the last 3.5 years. We know that the northern kingdom will leave on their second exodus at the 7th seal, which will occur 45 days after the 6th seal is opened, 45 minutes after the 7th seal is opened. The NWO and technology-based empire will be devastated at the 6th seal, ending their 3.5-year reign on the earth and their war against the northern kingdom. So this is just like a very, very brief summary of what we did in part 1 and part 2. Now, while on their way on the second exodus in the wilderness, let us see what will be happening to the northern kingdom at this time. Alahayam will be their deliverer, their protector, and their provider all along the way. Joel chapter 2 verse 1 confirms the seventh trumpet event of the second Exodus, with the voices and the lightnings and the thunderings and an earthquake. The trumpet sounding in Saiwan is coming from on high, because this mountain is not on the earth yet. But it will be coming at the beginning of the reign of Hamashiach. We know that the Mount Saiwan was the mountain, or is the mountain, where the Garden of Eden was planted upon. And the Garden of Eden, within that garden, is the sanctuary of Alahayam. So when he took up the Garden of Eden, he took everything up along with his mountain. That's why today, excuse me, today some people cannot find Mount Sinai / Mount Horeb. They don't know where Mount Moriah is. It's all guesstimating where these mountains are. Some say it's in Arabia, some say it's in Jordan. But the maps have been changed. Everything has been turned around to keep us confused as to the truth of these locations. They don't want these locations be found. And it was done to keep Yashraal in the dark. Because if we can't find the mountains, if we can't find the locations of where these places are, then people will tend to think, well, maybe the scriptures aren't correct. It will cause us to want to doubt the word of Alahayam. And that's not what he wants us to do. He wants us to trust in his word, even though it may not be apparent before us at the moment, but he will make it clear to us when the time comes. We just need to trust him and believe in him. Now is not the time to find Mount Sinai. Now is not the time to figure out where Mount Moriah is. Now is the time for us to get our lives right before him. And when he is ready, he is going to bring this earth, this entire earth, all the land masses, back together again, and he will reformat it in the manner in which he wants it to be, in the geographical state that he wants it to be. So in actual fact, it's not important, because everything's going to be changed anyway when he sends his judgments. What is important is to make sure that we don't lose our souls in the pursuit of empty knowledge. Like some people are running to Africa and thinking Africa is our place because there's a place they call Jerusalem. There's a place that looks very beautiful. You can even call it Eden, or maybe it's even called Eden. So people are flocking, our people are flocking to Africa. Right? And that is deception. Because all the names of the places, all the names of the countries and places, cities and provinces and territories, they've been changed and moved around on the maps. On the maps. So the very same way how they stole our books and changed words in the Bible and put stuff in and took things out, do you not think they will do the same thing to the maps? Yes, they will. They'll change the maps to keep us thinking that we're living on a spinning ball. To make us think that this continent is smaller than this other continent. All these different things they do. Do you not know that someone mentioned this to me some time ago, and I actually did my research on it? It's the flight pattern of airplanes. Airplanes that are flying from one country to another. The flight pattern. Airplanes tend not to go north to south. They go east to west. I saw it for myself. Ask yourself a question, why? Now, instead of taking a direct flight from, say, Japan to Canada, they're going to go through many different countries and not the same airplane. They're going to cause you to switch airplanes to go from, I don't know the flight pattern, from Japan to Canada, but let's just say there are 3 layovers that you have to go through. And if you notice, they tend to go around rather than go direct. And that going around avoids the northern part of the earth and the southern part on the earth, unless you're going towards, say, for example, Australia. Now, there's a reason why they do that. Because they don't want us to know the true layout of the landmass. Anyways, that's way off topic. But just to let you know that if they can change the maps, if they can change our word, they will change our maps to make us think what they want us to think, which is always deception. They want us to be deceived. All right? Okay. So, the trumpet sounding, I read that already. In Saiwan is coming from on high, because this mountain is not on the earth yet, but it will be at the beginning of the reign of Hamashiach. It's coming. That's where he is going to plant his tabernacle. His sanctuary is going to be on Mount Saiwan in Yarawashala. Joel chapter 2 verse 1. Blow you the trumpet in Saiwan and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble. For the day of Yahweh comes, for it is nigh at hand. It is near at hand. A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong. There has not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. Verse 3. A fire devours before them, and behind them a flame burns. The land is as the garden of Odan before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness, and nothing shall escape them. That means deliverance of the remnant. Nothing shall prevent them the righteous remnant of the northern kingdom, nothing will prevent them from escaping. Now, I'm going to go through this book and with these verses at the ending of this study. So let's go on to Yeshaoyah chapter 35 verse 1. The desert and the solitary place shall be glad for them, and the desert shall rejoice and blossom as the rose. So this is Yeshaoyah, who is Isaiah, telling us that when the northern kingdom start their exodus into the wilderness, that it will be glad for the sons of Alahayam to begin their walk home. The whole earth, the creation, is in anticipation of us being redeemed to the Father. Because when we are redeemed to the Father, then the earth can go back to its former state. Meaning it will be cleansed and purged of all the uncleanness that is happening upon it. Do you think that the earth is happy with what is happening upon it? I'm not trying to make the earth to be like a person, but there is something spiritual about the land. Because Alahayam, he is spirit and he created it. And it gives life to the seeds that we plant in it. It nurtures those seeds so that they can germinate and they can grow and become fruitful trees. Or wood-bearing or wood-burning trees. Whatever we plant in it, it grows. But when blood is shed on the land cries out to Alahayam. And then the land becomes cursed, and the things that you plant doesn't want to grow properly, or it just doesn't grow. And that's why we have deserts where there weren't deserts before. And now that there's water flowing to Saudi Arabia, people are noticing that the deserts are becoming plush with greenery. Because it wasn't always green. It wasn't always a desert. It became a desert because of the wicked, evil ones that rule this world. They're playing around with the upper atmosphere to cause droughts in certain places and heavy rainfalls other places. But when righteousness was on the earth was a plush place. All right? So the desert is going to rejoice. The earth is rejoicing because the sons of Alahayam, the northern kingdom, they're starting their trek home. And the earth knows that only moments away will be the ending of all evil and wickedness that's upon it, and righteousness will reign once again. Righteousness and holiness. Verse 2. It shall blossom abundantly and rejoice even with joy and singing. The glory of Lebanon shall be given unto it. The excellency of Carmel and Sharon, they shall see the glory of Yahweh and the excellency of Alahayam, our Alahayam. The earth starts to rejoice. The glory of Lebanon. Back in the day, Lebanon was supposed to be a beautiful place with beautiful trees, beautiful sceneries. Now it's a desolate place. But the beauty of Lebanon will be there in that wilderness. So it will not be a wilderness anymore. As the northern kingdom start their trek into the wilderness on their second exodus, yes, they have to go through a few things. But as they gain ground in the wilderness, They're going to start to see a conversion from wilderness to a place that looks like a beautiful garden filled with trees, fruit-bearing trees, trees for shelter. This is the promise of Alahayam based on Joel chapter 2 and Yesha'ah chapter 35. Carmel and Sharon, those are places in Yashrael where they grew grapes. I don't know if they're still doing it. I believe they still do. There were vineyards there. Verse 3, strengthen you the weak hands and confirm the feeble knees. Say to them that are of a fearful heart, be strong, fear not. Behold, Alahayam will come with vengeance, even Alahayam with a recompense. So these ones that are setting out on their track, they're going to feel feeble. Why? Because they've been through a war with the NWO, then they've been through the earthquake, the great earthquake, and now they're going through the next 4 trumpets. And we're going to go through those trumpets one by one. So the prophet here is speaking and saying to the northern kingdom, who is way in advance of his time, because he's speaking prophetically, he's speaking the words of Alahayam, and it's going to flow directly to them when they need to hear these words. Do not be afraid. Alahayam will come with vengeance and recompense. He will come and do what? Save you. You're saved. You're okay. You stay under the umbrella of Alahayam, under his protection, by being obedient and walking in righteousness and walking in his commandments. When he says it's time to get up and go, you get up and go. When he says it's time for you to camp, you settle yourselves and you camp. Just like our forefathers. He went before them when he lifted up himself like a cloud, because he was a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, but he was also a cloud that settled upon the tabernacle. And when the cloud lifted up, the priesthood knew it was time to start packing up. And once the tribes around the tabernacle see them packing up, they know now it is time to pack up. It's time to go. The signal is there. The cloud has been lifted. Once the cloud leads them or led them into the wilderness and he remained stationary, then they knew this is a place where we need to camp. So they set up their tabernacle and they set up their tents. And the same thing that happened for our forefathers will happen to the northern kingdom. It's not going to be a straight walk into our land, because the witnesses, the 2 witnesses, have to go into our land to cleanse it first. But while they're there cleansing the land, the northern kingdom will be on their trek. Plus, there's still a small amount of people that need to be weeded out. There's still people that the Most High is going to weed out of that number. All right. So all these things that they're going through is to do 2 things. First, to weed out the rebels, those that will grow faint of heart because of the things that are going on around them, because their hearts really were not fully trusting the Most High. And doubt is going to creep in. And you know what doubt does to a man? He becomes double-minded. and unstable in all his ways. And the second thing, that the things that they have to go through will help them to be strengthened in their faith. So one is to weed out the weaklings, the weak of heart, and two is to strengthen those that will stand firmly on the faith, believing in Alahayam. So as they keep walking and pressing in and believing in him, even though all these bad things are happening around them, it is causing them to be strengthened on the inward parts, to become a mighty great people. So that's why they have to go through this exodus. It is not about, oh, well, we need to learn our language and we need to learn this. No, it is about them becoming the true worshipers of Alahayam, believing in him, walking in his commandments. Everything else will fall into place. Everything that they need to know, he will give to them. All right? Okay. So, verse 6. Then shall the lame man leap as a hart. Verse 5. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf shall be unstopped. Why? Why suddenly now those that were blind, and this is both spiritually and physically, all right? Physically and spiritually. Now, let me just explain about spiritual blindness and spiritual deafness. Think about your conversion. When most of us, I would say greater majority of us of the Southern Kingdom, we were all part of a church. We thought that Jesus Christ was our Savior and the Lord God was our Heavenly Father. We were taught that. And for a while, we went and worshipped those names and titles, not knowing that we were spiritually blind and spiritually deaf. But our heart was in the right place. Our hearts wanted to worship someone who was greater than us. And we knew that he dwelt in the heavens. And we knew that he sent his son to die for our sins. But we were still blind and deaf to the truth of who they really were. Are, not were, are. Until we were awakened to our identity. Once we were awakened to our identity, then all the pieces fell into place. All the questions began to make sense in our spirit. Because, you had this question in your spirit. How come the preaching and the teaching does not line up with the scriptures that I'm reading? You didn't know. Did the Most High abandon us? No, he did not. He didn't abandon me. All he did, he dropped crumbs on the ground for me to follow. And as I gained momentum by eating the crumbs that he gave to me, then my awakening happened. Even after my awakening happened, I still didn't get it right. Because I was still searching, okay, if Jesus Christ is not the real name, who is the real name? Okay, if Israel is my country, and those people are, well, maybe we're an extension of each other, I don't know. But they're using the name Yeshua, so I'm going to use the name Yeshua. I went through a long period of time with all these different names that I heard people calling Hamashiach. Did he abandon me? No. He just said, keep working at it. Keep working at it. I said, but if that's not his name, what is his name? He said, what's the language? What is your language? I said, is Hebrew? He said, no, it's not your language. And I learned that the hard way, an expensive way too. I paid lessons to go and learn Hebrew. And I can go so far, brilliant as a student, but then try to do another class and as dumb as a doorknob. Couldn't figure out the language. And I'm like scratching my head. So how could I be so brilliant in last class? And I'm just like the next class over. And I'm as dumb as a doorknob. Can't figure it out. He said, because that's not your language. And I don't want you to learn anything more. I just wanted you to learn the basics. Because from the basics, you're going to be able to extract your language from the Hebrew language that was created to hide the language of Yashrael. Now, do you see how he began to open my blind eyes and my deaf ears? And this has been the path that we, Yashrael, both northern and southern kingdom, will be on. The southern kingdom first, because as we determine to walk the path of righteousness and holiness, more and more things are going to be revealed to us, more and more truth. Our eyes will become wide open and our ears completely open and our hearts completely flesh. And it's the same thing with the northern kingdom. They were awakened to their true identity. Yes, they cast away their idols and they fought to stay alive. Now he is reforming them and opening their blind eyes to see the real truth now. Because they've started a journey, or they will be starting a journey. They have no idea which direction they need to go, but they're following Alahayam. He will be their guide. And as they trust in their guide to not only guide them, but protect them and provide for them, the scales on their eyes will be removed, as well as their ears. And their hearts, that was once stony, will become like flesh. Because he is remodeling them all along the way. And that's why they started off like cripples, deaf and dumb. And this is both physically and spiritually. Now their eyes are open, the ears are open. And look at verse 6. Then shall the lame man leap as a hart. Hart is like a deer. And you know how high those deers jump. So now the lame man, he's no longer lame. And the tongue of the dumb sing. For in the wilderness shall waters break out and streams in the desert. So while they're going through the desert, they're being purged and cleansed and reformatted as well. They're going to be transformed. From being lame to being agile. From being dumb to being able to sing. From being blind, now they can see. From being deaf, now they can hear. No wonder they're going to become a great and mighty people. Verse 7, and the parched ground shall become a pool, and the thirsty land springs of water. So there will be no thirst on this journey. The journey is going to last about 3.5 years. So there will be no thirst at any time for these people. In the habitation of the dragons where each lay shall be grass with reeds and rushes. So not only is there water, but he's going to have greenery all around. He's going to have trees and rushes and grasses. He's going to have a plush environment for these people. But if you look at Joel chapter 2, he said the land before them will be like the Garden of Eden, the Garden of Eden. But behind them, what? A wilderness. So this plushness, this greenery, these trees, everything, the garden is going ahead of them so that they walk into it. But when they leave that place, it becomes a wilderness again. It doesn't remain as a Garden of Eden or like the Garden of Eden, because it is not the Garden of Eden. It is like the Garden of Eden. So if you can imagine this, as they're walking always into this plushness, this beautiful environment that has water and reeds and rushes and trees and vineyards. They're walking into abundance of fruits on trees. But when they look behind them, it's going to be a wilderness. Because that garden is going with them, is leading them all the way to their land, our land, the land of Yashrael. You can call it their guide. That's how they're going to know where they're walking in the right direction. Because as they're walking in the garden is basically guiding them. And that's Alahayam. And he will be there too. Right? Verse 8, and a highway shall be there, and a way, and it shall be called the way of holiness. The unclean shall not pass over it, but it shall be for those, the wayfaring men, though fools, shall not err therein. Again, like I said, this garden, all right, this plushness that they're going to be walking in always is going to have a highway. This is the highway for them to walk on to our land. And it's also called the way of holiness. That's why I said at the very beginning of their journey, it's not going to be this plushiness, this greenness, this abundance of trees and grass and fruit bearing trees. No, it's not going to be like that at the very beginning. But as they press through and press on, it will become like that. Because he has to weed out the rebels. The few remaining rebels that need to be weeded out, he will use the harshness of the environment, so to speak, to see what is in their hearts. A way to prove them. And once those ones are removed and he is left with just the righteous remnant, then he is going to transform the land before them to be like the Garden of Eden. Because these are the ones he has been waiting for to bring out and bring into our land. He says here, the unclean shall not pass over it. So the unclean will not see this Garden of Eden. The unclean will not be walking in that greenness, in that abundance, in that prosperity. No, they will not. They will be long weeded out. Verse 9, the lion shall be there. And that word, going back to verse 8, wayfaring men are travelers. So he's speaking about the northern kingdom that are traveling in the wilderness. All right? Verse 9, no lion shall be there, nor any ravenous beast shall go up thereon. It shall not be found there. But the redeemed shall walk there. They're going to be safe. Safe from their enemies. Safe from any wild animals. They're going to be safe. Remember, the NWO was devastated, not destroyed, because it was a technology-based empire. The great earthquake caused it to be devastated. It went underground. So now they're trying to pull themselves together and bring a new king over them, which we know is Azazel. All right? They're trying to get their ducks back in order again. So in the meantime, the northern kingdom is pressing onward. Verse 10. And the ransomed of Yahweh shall return. Who is the ransomed? The righteous remnant of the northern kingdom. And come to Sayawan with songs and everlasting joy upon their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away. So they will enjoy Sayawan with great joy and gladness. All the suffering that they've been through previously is all going to melt right off of them. All of us. All the suffering that we've all been through to get to the kingdom of Alahayam is just going to melt completely off of us. And there'll be no more sorrow or sighing or crying. There will just be gladness and joy forevermore. All right. Let's look at Yeshaoyah 41 verse 17. When the poor and needy seek water, and there is none, and their tongue fails for thirst, I, Yahweh, will hear them. I, Alahayam, O Yashrael, will not forsake them. I will open rivers in high places and fountains in the midst of the valleys. I will make the wilderness a pool of water, and the dry land springs of water. I will plant in the wilderness the cedar, the cheetah, which is the cassia tree, and the myrtle tree, and the oil tree, which is the olive trees. I will set in the desert the fir tree and the pine and the box, which is the cypress tree, together, that they may see and know and consider and understand together that the hand of Yahweh has done this, and the Holy One of Yashrael has created it. This is part of the beautiful garden that he is going to create for the northern kingdom. He is going to have shade trees, which is the acacia tree, the cedar tree, the myrtle tree, the fir tree, the pine tree, and the box tree. All those are trees for wood, so that they can burn wood. Trees for shelter. But you also have fruit-bearing trees. That will be their food. He's also going to restore manna for them. Yes, he will. You're going to need bread, right? So what he did for our forefathers, he's going to do again for the northern kingdom. And all these things that he will do for them will cause them to see the miracles. They will see them as miracles. These are impossible things that can be done. Wait a second. When we looked, it was a desert. Now, where did all these trees come from? And the water. He's not going to cause them to vanish away. No, they're going to be constantly walking in this garden. This garden is going to be the highway, the way of holiness that will take them all the way to our land. If they look behind them, they're not going to see a garden. They're going to see a desolate wilderness. But before them, the land will be like the Garden of Eden. And they will have to give praises to the Most High, because when they look behind them, they see a wilderness. But how is it possible? Before them, there's no wilderness, but there's this beautiful place. And he said, they will know that the hand of Yahweh has done this. The Holy One of Yashrael has done what? Created it. Meaning it is not there yet. And it will only happen when they start their journey. Not at the very beginning, like I said before, but as he has weeded out the rebels, then he is going to create before these people a beautiful highway with trees and fruit-bearing bushes, everything, water, springs, you name it, they will have it all. Now, the question to ask is, okay, so they're going through the wilderness, and with the trumpets that are happening, how does this affect the land before them, or affect them as they're traveling through the wilderness, which really isn't a wilderness? Well, like the psalmist say, 1,000 shall fall on your right hand and 10,000 at your side. I believe that's the correct scripture. Psalms 91. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Psalms 21. I don't want to misquote it. It's a beautiful scripture. He said here, 1,000 shall fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. Right? And this is Psalms 91 verse 7 that just came to me to understand how all of this is going to play out for the northern kingdom. Only with your eyes, this is verse 8, shall you behold and see the reward of the wicked. Because you have made Yahweh, who is my refuge, even the Most High, your habitation, there shall no evil befall you, neither shall any plague come near your dwelling. So there's your answer. As they're walking on that holy highway, the highway of holiness, the way of holiness, they're covered. They're protected. 1,000 can fall at their side and 10,000 at their right hand, but it cannot come near them. As long as they stay on the highway, as long as they stay on the way of righteousness, none of these plagues are going to affect them. They have to go through them, but they can go through them without being affected by them. Just like Yashrael when they were in Alahayam. They did not go through the three plagues, and the last 7 plagues, what happened? They were protected. They were set apart. All right. Alahayam will provide for the northern kingdom as they flee and enter into the wilderness. However, at the start of their trek, There will be some hurdles placed before them to prove them, to test them, in order to expose what is truly in their hearts. It will be just like our forefathers when they were in the wilderness. Alahayam proved them to expose the idolatry hidden in their hearts. The very first time they ran out of water, they did not remember the miracles that Alahayam did for them in Matsarayam. Therefore, they murmured and complained. Although Alahayam always provided for our forefathers in the wilderness, the inconvenience of lacking water or bread, though only for a very short period of time, was handled with murmuring and complaining. This murmuring and complaining empower our sin nature to rule over us and not Alahayam. Because when we murmur and complain, it means that we are dissatisfied with the situation and we do not believe and trust in Alahayam to work on our behalf. So instead of praising him and praying to him, first of all, you pray to him and ask him for help, and then you praise him in anticipation of that help. You murmur and complain. Because you are thinking, and this is pride, why do I have to go through this? Why do I have to be hungry? Why do I have to be thirsty? That's pride. Instead of saying, okay, I'm going through this situation. I don't understand it for now, but I know that you are more than able to help me. And so I place my trust in you and I wait on you for you to help me. Now that's the prayer of those who have faith. The opposite of faith is what? You doubt. And doubt comes with fear and anxiety and frustration and anger. Either you trust in Alahayam or you don't. When you trust, your faith is strengthened and you believe and you wait patiently. But that was not our forefathers. Every time they saw the miracles in Matsarayam, they saw him as a pillar of fire by night. They saw, even less before that even happened, they saw the death of their enemies in the Red Sea. They walked through the Red Sea. They saw the other miracles, and yet the minute they ran out of water, they complained. Oh, we might have just stayed in Matsarayam. At least we had this there and we had that there. They could not embrace the miracles because they had no faith, because they didn't believe in Alahayam. They didn't trust him. And what Alahayam wants from us more than anything else is to trust him, to believe in him, to be obedient to him and his word, to walk in his commandments, to believe in his son and what his son has done for us. When we embrace those things, then no matter what we go through, we're not going to flinch. We're not going to go back to that place where we murmur and complain. Because with all our hearts, we believe in Alahayam. And it may not be a comfortable place where we're at right now, but we can't go back to that place where we were before, because it didn't help us. When we complained, it just made you angry. And that's why we have to go through these things, because he is reforming us to be people of faith, people who will believe in him. It's not that he wants to see us being tormented. That is not his desire. But unfortunately, we have to go through these bad things. We have to go through these things that work us to the core of our being, that shake us and break us. We can't help it. We were formed in sin. So to become people of faith, that sin nature has to be broken and be submitted under our spirit man. And our spirit need to be strengthened. And the only thing that strengthens us spiritually is faith. So we can't escape the testing, the tribulations. We can't escape it. I remember many, many, many years ago when I was a new believer in the church, there was this one question that always stomped even the most seasoned Christians in that church. And the question was, why is it that Christians have to suffer? Why do Christians have to suffer? And I remember hearing that question one Friday night when we had a youth meeting. And up to now, no one can answer the question. They say, well, it's just one of those things. And when you become a believer, yes, all of a sudden, you become a target. But there's something deeper than that. Why do we become a target? Well, let's move away from the fact I'm no longer a Christian. I'm a believer of Hamashiach. But that question still remains. Why is it that now we are believers in Hamashiach? We have, our identity has been revealed to us. We have discovered who we really, really are. We are of the tribes of Yashrael. And yet, we're targeted. Why? Why do we have to suffer? Well, I just explained it. The only way that we can break that sin nature, or let me just rephrase that. The only way sin nature can be broken and bring under submission is through these trials. Because if we submit to our sin nature, to whine and complain about every little bad thing that happens to us, then that sin nature grows and strengthens and controls us. But if we submit to Alahayam and we worship Him and praise Him no matter what we're going through, then that sin nature is broken. And our faith is strengthened. That's how it works. There's no other way these two dynamics can work except through the testing and the trials that we have to go through. In order to break the sin nature, we have to reject our natural inclination to whine, complain, to cry about the things that we're missing or we wish we had, or the things that are going on in our lives. When we reject the natural inclination to get angry and behave badly, and we decide to become people of prayer and to worship and praise the Most High, that's when the sin nature is broken. And now we start to become a people of faith. And now He has something to work with. All right? And that's the reason why we must suffer. Hamashiach suffered the greatest of sufferings for us all, so that we don't have to sweat blood, so that we don't have to go through the pain that he went through for us. He did it mostly. He did it all for us, so that we don't have to do the bulk of what he went through. We don't have to go through the bulk of what he went through. We go through and it is bearable, because what he went through was unbearable. And he did it so that we don't have to do it. But it doesn't mean that we don't have to go through anything, because we must go through. As he went through, so must we go through. But our suffering is minimal compared to what he went through. All right. So this is the place where we're at as believers. To believe in Hamashiach and what he has done for us, and gladly go through the trials that befall us. It's not a happy time. No, it's not a happy moment at all to go through trials. Who wants to go through a trial? It would be so easy to just go through and walk on this rose-covered carpet highway all the way to our land, and never ever have to go through anything. But how will we prove that we believe in Alahayam, that we trust in him and our faith in him is sound and sure? How can we prove that? You got to go through something to know what we're working with. Because we know now who we are and what we're working with. He got to shake us up to see what comes out. And I think I said in the previous study that all a man needs to know, what is hidden in his heart, is shown to him by a situation that he goes through. Let something comes to rattle his cages, to rattle him, to threaten his livelihood, to threaten what he has, the material things that he has. See what comes out of him from his lips, and then you know who he is serving. When I think of things like that, I remember Job, when he lost it all. What did he do? Yeah, he put on sackcloth and poured ashes upon himself, because he was in mourning. He lost his children, lost his cattle, he lost his servants. He was diseased. But did he whine and complain? All he tried to figure out is, what did I do wrong? He cried out to the Father to find out. But he didn't complain. He didn't get angry. And what the Most High was proving to Satan, who came up to, he present himself, because they all have to in those days they had to present themselves before Alahayam. And he said, have you considered my servant Job? He's a righteous man. And Job proved his righteousness even when everything was stacked up against him. He proved his righteousness. And what happened to him in the end? He got more children, more servants, and more cattle. More than what he had before. And that's why I'm saying, when we go through trials and tribulation, don't always think that it is evil that comes against us, but don't think that the Father has abandoned you. He's proving you to see what's coming out of you. He's proving me what comes out, or what will come out of me. Am I going to pray to him and then praise him, or am I going to complain? Am I going to fret? Shamuath chapter 16 verse 2. And the whole congregation of Habanai, all Yashrael, that's the children of Yashrael, murmured against Masha and Ahawaran in the wilderness. And Habanai, all Yashrael, said unto them, Would to Alahayam we had died by the hand of Yahweh in the land of Matzarayam, when we sat by the flesh pots, and we did eat bread to the full, for you brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. You see, these ungrateful forefathers of ours forgot that they were suffering, they were persecuted, their babies were stolen from them and used as bricks. They forgot all of that. All they remember, flesh pots, bread to the full. Why didn't you just leave us there and let us die there? Let Yahweh kill us there in Matzarayam instead of bringing us into this wilderness to die. They're ungrateful and not short-tempered. I was going to say short-tempered, but they have short memories. In fact, I don't even think they had a memory of the suffering that they went through in Matzarayam for hundreds. I would say about over 100 years. They didn't remember. All right? All they remember is the food, the garlic, the onions, the flesh pots. All they remember is what makes their flesh happy, which is food, their bellies. And now that they have freedom in the wilderness, and because they have no water or bread to eat, they're complaining. They forgot everything except this immediate situation that they're confronted with. Lack of bread. They lacked water. They did the same thing, whine and complain, and the Most High gave them water from a rock. In fact, the first time when they ran out of water, they did find water, but it was bitter water. But after that, he gave them water from a rock. And you would think that each of those times when they cried out for something that he gave it to them, that they will stop crying out for it, that they will stop complaining and murmuring. And we're not just talking about grumbling under their breath. We're talking about heated murmurings, heated grumblings to the point where they want to stone Masha and Ahawaran. Verse 4. Then said Yahweh unto Masha, saying, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or not. And the law, they were supposed to collect the bread 6 days. 7th day is the Shabbat. They were not supposed to collect anything because there will be no bread. Simple law, right? Still had some going out. Oh, the other parts to the collecting of the bread, they were to collect on the sixth day. They were to collect twice as much because they couldn't collect any bread on the seventh day, so they had enough on the sixth day to last them for the seventh day. And the second thing, they were not supposed to keep the bread or the manna for more than 24 hours. All right? Because it would turn to worms. They weren't supposed to keep it overnight. It was their daily bread for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and maybe if they want snacks in between. But by nightfall, once they're finished eating, they were supposed to either finish it all or discard it, burn it. But they were not supposed to keep any overnight, because that was a way for him to show or to prove them whether or not they trust in him to provide their daily bread. He wanted them to trust him for their daily bread, literally and spiritually too. And did they obey him? No, there were some that broke the law. They kept the bread overnight, and the next day it had worms and it stunk up the whole camp. This is the nature of Yashrael, through and through. We do not listen. It is not the desire of Alahayam to see us suffering, but it is necessary for us to have to endure suffering to be tried and found true. And this is true for the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom if they want to be in covenant with Alahayam. The righteous remnant are called such because they have forsaken all and sacrificed all to be in covenant with him. And the various situations that come our way are here to prove us. The northern kingdom will have to learn to endure and have faith in Alahayam if they want to see salvation. It is at this time that Alahayam will cause the northern kingdom to have to endure the first 4 trumpet judgments in the wilderness as a way to sift the rebels that will be hidden amongst them. He is only bringing those that are in covenant with him entirely, all right, into our land. So only those that are in covenant with him entirely, completely. We're not talking about someone that will speak with words, but their hearts are far away from him and worshiping other gods. No, he's not talking about that. He's talking about people that are in covenant with him entirely, through and through. All right? Just like the southern kingdom, who will be faced with the same decision to choose him and be in covenant with him or not. All others will perish. So this is why it all comes down to our forefathers went into the wilderness because the Most High wanted to be in covenant with them. He wanted to be in covenant with them because they were the offspring of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, who he had made the covenant with. So now he brought these people out in the wilderness to be their Alahayam and them to be his people. But the problem is that these people were not ready to be in covenant with him because they wanted to worship idols. And that particular idol called the golden calf. So what he did, he waited for that generation to die out with the exception of 2 and their family, to bring the offspring of those that left Matzorayam into covenant with him once again, and then bring them into the land of Yashrael, the land of promise. And when they broke his covenant, what did he do? Did he not cause them to be scattered, to be enslaved over and over again? Every time they were enslaved, they cry out to him. He sent a deliverer. And then they were in covenant with him for a short while until they misbehaved. And they started worshiping other idols. And as it was with our forefathers, so it is with us today. He wants a covenant people. People that would say, yes, you will be our Alahayam and we will be your people. And the way how we are going to prove that we are your people is by walking in your commandments. So the ones that are out there telling you that you don't have to obey the commandments, you don't have to obey the law because you're under grace, they are misinforming you and leading you away from the covenant of Alahayam, and you're not going to make it into his kingdom. And I use the word kingdom for both the kingdom of Alahayam and the land of Yashraal, because the land of Yashraal will become his kingdom. When Hamashiach comes there, it will become his kingdom. All right? Do not listen to people telling you to ignore the commandments. Do not bother about keeping the festivals. Don't worry about the Shabbat, the Sabbath, because we don't really know the correct day. All right? Ignore those people. Run for the hills. Run from those people because they are misinforming you, deceiving you, and bring you into darkness where they are. You can easily know when the Shabbat is. I did a study on that. I'm not going to go through that now. Go and watch my extensive study on the day of Sabbath, the Shabbat day. Yawam HaShabbat is the title of that study. It gives you detailed information about the Shabbat day, how you can figure it out. I also did a study on the covenant and why we need to be in covenant. And I did another in-depth, detailed study on that because we need to be in covenant in order to see salvation. We have brethren out there saying that all we need to do is wait. Then he's going to bring us into the wilderness and then we'll figure it all out there. They have no clue what they're saying. Because the wilderness is not meant for the 12 tribes. It's only meant for the northern kingdom. The southern kingdom will be taken up. They're the first to be regathered. Last to scatter, first to regather. He's not blending the two together as yet to make one kingdom. We have always been, for a very long time, two kingdoms, two nations. And he will only bring them together as one nation, one kingdom, when Hamashiach comes to reign on this earth. And when that happens, it will be because the righteous remnant of the northern kingdom is already in our land, and the righteous remnant of the southern kingdom will come with him, and then he will bring the two and make them one again. So again, you're being deceived. Don't look at the number of subscribers that these people have and think, well, they have 100,000 subscribers, so they're probably speaking the truth. Do not look at their subscribers. Look at the word. Get into the word yourself and allow Ruach HaKodesh to teach you the truth. And stay away from anyone that keeps you away from the covenant with Alahayam and to keep you away from keeping his commandments. and his statutes. All right? All right, let's move on. Yes, let's move on to the next slide. There's only one way to be in covenant with Alahayam, and that is through his son, Hamashiach. Without Hamashiach, it is impossible for anyone to be in covenant with Alahayam. Therefore, all who deny Hamashiach as our Savior, our Redeemer, our High Priest forever, and our eternal sacrifice will perish. He's not looking for rebels anymore. He is not looking for rebels anymore. It is for this reason why we're still here. Because he is weeding out the southern kingdom and giving us ample amount of opportunities to get ourselves right before him. Ample opportunities so that no one can say, we didn't know, we didn't have time. Because you will know. Because you've been given the time. But if you're looking for a shortcut into the kingdom, the only shortcut you're going to find is the one to the lake of fire. Revelation chapter 8 verse 7. The first angel sounded. That's the trumpet. And there followed hail and fire mingled with blood. And they were cast upon the earth. And the third part of trees was burnt up. And all green grass was burnt up. Now, this very first trumpet judgment will occur at the time when the northern kingdom will be in the wilderness. Now, this judgment is like the judgments that were upon Matzorayim, hail, fire, blood, and the destruction of the greenery by the locusts. All the green stuff was eaten up by the locusts. Except this time it will be the hail and fire destroying a third part of the trees and all the grass. Now, the northern kingdom will have to rely on Alahayam for their preservation during these difficult times without murmuring and complaining. They have persevered through prayers when they went through that war and the earthquake, which they had already witnessed working on their behalf when they began their exodus. So they will have to do this again, and each time they fall into difficulties. So they persevered through prayers which they had already witnessed working on their behalf when they began their exodus. So they will have to do this again, and each time they fall into difficulties. Now remember, I said that in the beginning of their journey, they're not going to see the prosperity. They're not going to see the greenness, the lakes and the streams and rivers, not lakes, the streams and rivers. They're not going to see all of that in the very beginning. You know what they're going to see? Hail and fire mingled with blood. That's what they're going to see. And that's going to shake them to the core. But the hail isn't going to hit them. Why? Because as long as they stay the course and they stay on the path that they are on, it's going to fall on their right side, it's going to fall on their left side, but it's not going to hit them. The fire is going to rage around them, but it's not going to touch them. The only thing that is going to touch them is fear. And those that are fearful, because they did not believe in Alahayam through and through, 100%, they're going to run off, and that's why they're going to be destroyed. They're going to try to find shelter. They're going to try to find a place where they can hide, and they're going to be destroyed. Because Alahayam is going to be with them. And they have to steer the course. They have to stay the path. They have to steer the course. And the only thing that they can do at this point of time is to pray. Because imagine, you got this hail falling all around you and fire blazing all around you. Now, if they're in the wilderness, there's not much grass for the fire to burn up. But there will be a shrub here and a shrub there and a tree here and a tree there. They're going to see a little bit of something, but they're going to see the fires. They're going to see all these things happening. It's coming from the sky. It's coming from above. So who would not be afraid? But if they trust in Alahayam and they remembered how he had helped them through the war, that great war with the NWO, and he helped them through the great earthquake, now they have to trust in him to get them through this hail and fire mingled with blood. And that blood will come and seep into the waters to make the waters blood. That's what that blood is there. So now they need water to drink. You see, the very same situation that our forefathers have been in when they were in the wilderness, these ones are going to go through. Because that's how you test a person's heart to see what's hidden in there. Because if there's any, even a shred of doubt in there, it will surface and it will show itself. No. If it's a shred of doubt, you can master it and conquer it, or you can succumb to it and they will go running off looking for water or looking for shelter from this horrific plague that is hitting the earth. All right. Now this calls to mind the 3 young men of Yahweh who were given a choice to worship either the image of gold or Alahayam. They were thrown into the fire, but were not burnt because they trusted in Alahayam and they chose to worship only him. These are the words of these young men of faith. So this is taken from Daniel chapter 3, starting from verse 16. Hananiah, Mayasha'a, and Ozariah. I know in the Bible it gives them their Babylonian names. I refuse to call them by the Babylonian names that were given to them. So Hananiah, Mayasha'a, and Ozariah answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer you in this matter. Why? What was the matter? He created a golden image, and at the sound of the music, they were all supposed to fall down and worship it. And these 3 young men refused to do so. So that's why they're responding this way. Verse 17. If it be so, Alahayam, our Alahayam, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. So he put before them, King Nebuchadnezzar put before them, listen, you need to bow down to this golden image or be thrown into this fire. And they said, no, we're not doing it. So what did he do? He had a furnace and he told them to heat it 7 times hotter to throw them in. Verse 18, but if not, be it known unto you, O king, that we will not serve your gods, nor worship the golden image which you have set up. Now we drop down to verse 22 because I didn't want to go right through this story. Just wanted to get to the point where these 3 young men trusted in Alahayam to deliver them. One way or the other, they're delivered. Even if they die, they'll be delivered up to him in paradise or delivered here on the earth. They were in a win-win situation as long as they trusted in Alahayam, as long as they worshiped him and not the golden image or any other god. And they knew it. And even when their lives were at stake, they didn't care. They said, we're not worshiping your gods, O king. And when he heated the furnace 7 times hotter, the army that took those 3 boys they were still girding their clothing to throw them into the fire, the army, the men that threw them in, were slaughtered by the fire, were burnt to a crisp by the fire. And these 3 young men fell into the midst of the fire. And let's see what happens to them. Verse 22. Because the king's command was urgent and the furnace exceeding hot, the flame of the fire slew those men that took up Hananiah, Mayasha'a, and Ozariah. And these 3 men, Hananiah, Mayasha'a, and Ozariah, fell down, bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Verse 27. And the princes, governors, and captains, and the king's counselors, being gathered together, saw these men, upon whose bodies the fire had no power, nor was a hair of their head singed, neither were their coats changed, nor the smell of fire had passed on them. You know what happened? Nebuchadnezzar saw, while these 3 young men were in the fire, that they stood up and started walking around in the fire. But there were 3 when they threw them in. Now there were 4. And what did King Nebuchadnezzar said? Did we not throw 3 in? No, I see a 4th. And he looks like the son of Alahayam. So while they were in the fire, Hamashiach came down and was with them in the fire. The fire had no power over their physical bodies. Not a thing on their bodies was touched. Nothing on their body was touched by this fire. Not even the smell of the fire, the smoke was on them. Nothing was singed. Their clothing didn't change. Nothing happened. Nor was the hair of their head singed, neither were their coats changed, nor the smell of fire had passed on them. It was as if they were standing out on the beach. It was as if nothing happened, even though they were in the fire that was heated 7 times hotter and it killed men. But it didn't touch them. Same thing with the northern kingdom. When those fires come and the hail come, it will not touch them, but it will shake them up because of them witnessing what they're seeing, witnessing these things that are happening. And the question will be, who do you fear most? Do you fear Alahayam? Or do you fear the loss of your flesh? Because if you fear the loss of your flesh, if you fear death, you're going to try to hide to preserve yourself. And that's because you don't trust me to preserve you. So that's the question that's going to be presented to them to see what they will do. Okay, let's look at the next trumpet, Revelation chapter 8, verse 8. And the second angel sounded, and as it were, a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea. And the 3rd part of the sea became blood. And the 3rd part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died. And the 3rd part of the ships were destroyed. And the 3rd angel sounded. And there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, And it fell upon the third part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of the waters. And the name of that star is called Wormwood. The name of the star is called Wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. So the second angel that sounded the great burning mountain is a volcano. Sorry. It's a volcano that erupted, a great earth. I keep wanting to say earthquake. A great volcano that erupted, and it caused a third part of the sea to become blood. All right? And a third part of the creatures in the sea to die. And ships were burned up and died, destroyed, because of this burning mountain that went into the sea. That meant that, there's an earthquake, not earthquake, I keep saying earthquake. This volcano, Yellowstone Park, or volcano, they call it a super volcano. They say that if that should ever explode, it's going to affect about 3 or 4 states greatly. It's going to do some catastrophic damage to 3 or 4 states. Not to mention the ash that goes up first, that will darken the sun and cover everything on the land surrounding it within however many miles, hundreds of miles, because it's a super volcano. Now, we don't know which volcano this is, but we know that it's going to be so immense of an explosion of this volcano that the mountain itself will fall into the sea and destroy a third of what is in the sea, including ships that will be in the sea. Now, verse 10, the third angel, that is wormwood. And again, this almost is a perfect reflection of what happened to our brethren, our forefathers, when they were in the wilderness, when they encountered bitter water. Okay, Shamawath, chapter 15, verse 22. So Masha brought Yashraal from the Red Sea, and they went on into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days' journey and found no water. And it was at this point of time, when they first came out of Alahayam, which is Egypt, they had water and they had food, they had bread. So what happened after they crossed the Red Sea and they journeyed 3 days, they ran out of water. Verse 23, and when they came to Marah, they could not drink of the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore the name of it was called Marah. Marah means bitter. Verse 24, and the people murmured against Masha, saying, what shall we drink? You see, it goes back to complaining. Even after they had that Red Sea experience, where they saw their enemies being destroyed in the water, what did they do? They started to murmur. Verse 25, and he cried unto Yahweh, and Yahweh showed him a tree, which when he cast into the waters were made sweet. There he made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he proved them. This was a test to see what was in their hearts. If they will cry out to him to help them, or murmur and complain because, hey, we expected to have water while we're here in the wilderness. Hello, why did you do this? Why did you bring us from Matsarayam, where we had water, all the water we can drink, into this wilderness to die? You see, this is self-indulgence. This is self-righteousness speaking. And that's the gods that they serve, the golden calf. It's all about self-preservation. Verse 26, and said, if you would diligently hearken to the voice of Yahweh Alahayam, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon you, which I have brought upon Matsarayam, for I am Yahweh that heals you. He is Yahweh Rapa'ah, Yahweh that heals us. Now there seems to be a repeat of history of our forefathers' exodus into the wilderness and the northern kingdom's second exodus. But this is no coincidence. Alahayam knows that our flesh is very weak when it comes to the lack of food and water. It is our natural inclination to fight for survival when this occurs. But this is not to be the same for Habanai Ol Yashra'al. We need to rely on Ha'ola Yawan. We need to rely on the Most High. We, the children of Yashra'al, the redeemed ones, the righteous remnant, we need to rely on the Most High, Ha'ola Yawan, for all of our needs, especially during the most challenging times of our lives. Now, I've said this in the previous study, part 2, that there is going to be an increase of persecution for the southern kingdom coming. It is coming. This is how we are going to know who is going to make it out. Whether they're going to succumb to the temptation to fight for their rights, or to surrender to Alahayam and wait on him to move us out. I saw something yesterday that, I'm like, these people are working day and night to get their systems in order, to get their empire in order. What I saw was this, and you can go and look it up. And this I heard about it yesterday and I looked it up today. It's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Canadian Prime Minister, and that French guy Macron. They're going to meet along with, I think, Hugh Jackson and a few other well-known famous people and other prime ministers. They're going to meet in New York City, and what they're going to be discussing is the coming global, let me rephrase that, the coming digital global citizens now, NOW, all in capital letters. But that's the NWO changed around. Instead of New World Order, New Order of the World, NOW. This is what they're discussing on April 27th to April 28th. How they're going to roll out mandates. I heard that Mr. Trudy, that's what I call him, is planning on censoring even further people that are on platforms such as this. Because Canadians don't like it when we talk badly about other people. Guess what's on the top of their topic as well? Climate change. Those same gender peoples, the rainbow people, yeah, that's on their topic. We have to embrace them and not word criticize, but not speak against them. Amongst other things that they're planning on discussing. Now, that's what they're telling us they're discussing, but they didn't tell us what they're going to discuss behind closed doors, because I'm sure they're going to have other things that they're going to be discussing that is not going to come to our ears until they roll out those mandates. Digital Global Citizens, NOW. Look it up. This is what they're doing. And like I said before, the empire that is going to be behind all of this is the UN. Look and see their part in all of this. They are working together because they know their time is coming to an end, and our time of being regathered, the Southern Kingdom, is very close. But they can't do anything to touch us just yet. But they can get the mandates in order, so all they have to do is activate them. We can go to sleep tonight and wake up in the morning, and all these different things are in place. And you can't get anything unless you have a digital ID. And until you do certain things that they want you to do, which goes against your beliefs, because it will cause you to worship their gods and not Alahayam, that's going to it's going to mark you a bullseye on your back. Unless you live in an obscured place. But if you're living in those cities where you're dependent on technology, you're dependent on money, then you're going to have a big problem. That's why I've warned you. If you got a few dollars in your pocket, get out of those cities. Get out of the cities, because that's where they're going to roll out their strategies first. And then they're going to try to bring all the people from the outskirts in. If they can't destroy them, they're going to try to bring them in. That's why we have all these spillages happening, these derailments. This is not a time for you to try to have a pension and try to have, and I've said this before, but I feel I need to say it again. This is a time for you to start thinking, I need to get out of the city. All right? All right, I'm not going to say anymore. People will choose to do what they want to do because they either love the world and the things in this world, or they love Alahayam. If you love Alahayam, he will direct you out. So you don't need to hear me telling you what to do, because he himself will tell you what to do. But if you're looking for confirmation, then you've heard it from my lips. When he told me to get out 3 years ago, I got out. And he has been providing for me ever since. Praises to the Most High. All right. Verse 20. Sorry, no. We skipped all the way down. Yes, Alahayam, he knows that our flesh is weak. All right. But in the case of, and in the case of the northern kingdom, okay, let's start from, but this is not to be the same. This is not to be the same for Habanai or Yashra'al. We need to rely on Ha'olayawan for all our needs, especially during the most challenging times of our lives. We need to rely on him. We don't have a choice, especially in these coming days. Evil is rampant, and it's not even at its highest yet. There's still more to come. And in the case of the northern kingdom, they now need to learn to depend on him for their survival in the wilderness. And like I said at the first, this will be done to prove what is in their hearts, to see who will believe his instructions and commandments and walk in them. So now let's look at the fourth trumpet, Revelation chapter 8, verse 12. And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. Now day and night will be shortened at the fourth trumpet. So let's do the math. A day, according to Alahayam's clock, is made up of 18 hours. And this includes the nighttime hours as well. So if the daytime hours are 9 hours and the nighttime hours are 9 hours, which is in the case of spring and fall, where you have equal amount of daylight and equal amount of nighttime, of darkness, right? So in this case, it would be 9 hours for daylight, 9 hours for nighttime. Then a third of the day darkened would be for 3 hours. So you take 9 and you divide it by 3 and you get what? 3, right? So if you subtract 3 from 9, it will give you the length of the day that will be happening in these days coming to be 6 hours. So instead of 9 hours for daylight and 9 hours for nighttime, it will be 6 hours for daylight and 6 hours for nighttime. So instead of 18 hours in a day, it will be 12 hours in a day. The day is now shortened by 6 hours. Now, if we're using the 24-hour clock, then the day will be shortened by 4 hours as well as the night, but only in the spring and fall. So when we get to this chapter in Revelation, I'm going to do a fun little chart for you to see how it's going to work for the summer, the spring, the winter, and the fall, how short the days will be in comparison to nighttime. Now, this shortening of time is speeding up the time because the judgments will be so terrible upon the earth that it will threaten the survival of all flesh. But Alahayam will also shorten time for another purpose, to eventually remove time entirely. The world is being weaned off of time, getting ready for life in eternity. Now, do you know that when Adam and Hawa were created and they were living in the Garden of Eden, that they were not living in time, they were living in eternity? Did you know that? It's only after they left the garden then they were experiencing time. There was no sun in the Garden of Eden. There was no need for sun because there was no darkness there either, so there was no nighttime. It's only after they left the Garden of Eden that they experienced sunlight and darkness at night. So they were living in eternity because they were living in the Garden of Eden. They were living in the kingdom of heaven. And now what is happening? The world is being weaned off of time. That's why the days have been shortened. until time will exist no more. And this is before the 1,000-year reign of of Hamashiach. Matthew chapter 24, verse 21. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. So who are these elect? It is none other than the northern kingdom that he's speaking about. Could not be speaking about the southern kingdom. We're gone. Now, although they will be preserved, they are still not in our land as yet. So that's why he is preserving them, and he's shortening the days for several reasons. Speed up the cleansing in the land of Yashrael, and also speeding up their journey. All right. Remember that a few Gentiles will be given a portion of our inheritance, and they too will be preserved. And for their sakes too, time will be sped up. There will be a few Gentiles. When I say few, I'm not talking about one or two. But there will be some Gentiles that will be preserved on the earth, and they will be given a portion of our inheritance. And they will be there to serve us and to serve Alahayam. Time speeding up will also hasten the northern kingdom's arrival in our land. Now, while the northern kingdom is on their way to our land of Yashrael, they are sealed to prevent them from enduring any more of the plague judgments. And this will be at the 5th trumpet sounding, because if you look at what the 5th trumpet is, it is horrific. So yes, they had to see and endure the first 4 trumpets along with the previous seal judgments, but now by the 5th trumpet they're sealed, meaning you can't come anywhere near these people. Stay away. Revelation chapter 9 verse 1. And the 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing nor any tree, but only those men who have not the seal of Alahayam in their foreheads. The earth already had to endure the previous trumpet, where the green things, the trees, a third of the trees were burned up, and all the grass was burned up. But this time you can't hurt the grass and you cannot hurt the trees, but only the men that were not sealed. Verse 5. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he strikes a man. So these locust-like creatures, which we know are fallen angels, the watchers from out of the pit, the bottomless pit, that were shut up there because they had married the daughters of men, the daughters of men, the women, the earthly women, and they created this hybrid breed where they procreated, and they made this hybrid breed called the Nephilim. Right? They married them, which meant that they had intercourse, and that's how the hybrid breed came about. You have them being angelic beings along with the earthly women, and they created a hybrid species, which were rejected by Alahayam. So they were demonic, they were evil, they were wicked, and that's why the Most High had to send the flood to destroy them, along with all the other people on the earth, with the exception of the 8 people. So these are the ones that were locked away for their wickedness, because they broke that one law that they were supposed to obey, where they were not supposed to mingle with flesh. Just like we have this law where we are not supposed to mingle with animals or of the same gender. It is an abomination. But for the angels who should have known better, they were cast into the bottomless pit, awaiting judgment, eternal judgment. But in this case, what he did, he released them to do his bidding, which is to bring curses through pain on the wicked people on the earth, the ones that were not sealed. It wasn't supposed to kill them, only torment them. So now these people that were tormented, they have a choice to make. Obviously, the northern kingdom could not be touched, but all other people that were on the earth were touched. They all had to bear the pain, every single one of them. Why? Because they're all Gentiles. And all people, just like we have had to endure our persecution, they too must endure their persecution, and this is their pain. And they have to endure it for 5 months. And remember what I said before? Now he is going to know who really, of the Gentiles, not the northern kingdom. The northern kingdom, now they're sealed, and these are the righteous remnant that will make it into the land. There's no more sifting for them. But the world now, with the Gentiles, who will be determined to serve him no matter what, this is the method by which he's going to sift them. Because when you put a man through the ringer and you listen to what comes out of his mouth, then you'll know who he's serving. So these ones that are going to be tormented, what are they going to say? Are they going to curse Alahayam? A lot of them did. But the ones that did not, the Most High knows that they're the ones that will make it into his kingdom as well. Verse 11, and they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Obarai tongue is Abadawan, which is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue has his name Apollyon. Now this is not the sealing of the 144,000 as many have mistaken to believe, but it is the sealing of the righteous remnant of the northern kingdom while on their way on their land to our land. While on their way on their exodus to our land. Now this is to preserve them from further judgments, as they have been thoroughly purged of all rebels at this point. Let's look at Yehochanan, the book of John, chapter 6, verse 26. Yahweh answered them and said, Verily, verily, I say unto you, you seek me, not because you saw the miracles, but because you did eat of the loaves and were filled. Labor not for the meat which perishes, but for that meat which endures unto everlasting life, which the Son of Man shall give unto you. For him has Alahayam Ha'aba sealed. All right, so this sealing is not exclusive only for the 144,000, but it is for all who believes in Alahayam and walk in his commandments. So what is this sealing? This sealing is not physical but spiritual. And when it is spoken about being sealed in our foreheads, it is speaking about our minds. In our minds are our thoughts and ideas where we store our knowledge. It is also our battlefield where we fight some of the most brutal warfares known to man. When we are worshiping Alahayam and walking in his commandments, our minds are set on him, and we will have victory over all our spiritual battles, because Alahayam will reign in our hearts and in our minds. Even if you sway a little, you always will bounce back. Why? Because he is there reigning in your hearts, in your mind, in your heart and in your mind. We all have moments where we are weak and we succumb, but he's the one that comes and picks us up and say, okay, I'm going to carry you until you regather your strength, and then you can walk the rest of the way. He will never leave us nor forsake us. And he knows when we've been through enough and we just can't go on anymore, then he steps in. He steps in. That's why we are not going to lose any battles as long as we get up and we keep moving. We can fall, but as long as we get up and keep moving, we have not lost that battle. We only lose the battle when we remain down and we refuse to get up. But the act of getting up means that we're drawing our strength from our faith in him to carry us to the next leg. Now we become sealed in our minds because of our determination to worship him and him alone, always putting him first in our lives. Now this is not in words only, but also in walking in all of his commandments. Many of our brethren are not sealed because they have decided which commands they want to obey. They have chosen what they want to believe in and who they want to believe in. They will discover to their disappointment how wrong they have been, especially when persecution will come their way without the help of Ha'olayam. Because once he has rolled himself away from us, then he's finished with us. First Peter chapter 1 verse 13. Wherefore, gird up the loins of your mind, be sober, and hope to the end for the grace that is to be brought unto you at the revelation of Yahawashawa'o Hamashiach. I know I called him Yahawashawa'o, but he's also Yahawasha'o. Okay? As obedient children, verse 14, not fashioning yourselves according to the former lust in your ignorance, but as he who has called you is holy, so be you holy in all manner of conversation, because it is written, be you holy, for I am holy. This is what this is all about. And how do we become holy? When we believe in Alahayam with all our hearts, with all our soul, and with all our mind, and with all our strength. We believe in him. It means then that we have faith in him. But we also have to walk out that faith. Faith without works is dead. And it's the same the other way around. Works without faith is dead. So if you say that you have faith, but you don't stand on faith when you're going through some tough times, then you don't really have faith. Yohanan chapter 6, the book of John chapter 6 verse 27 again. That's from above. Labor not for the meat which perishes, but for that meat which endures unto everlasting life, which the Son of Man shall give unto you. He is going to give us the meat. What is the meat that he's speaking about? Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. For him has Alahayam Ha'aba sealed. So the person who is receiving meat from Hamashiach is the person that is sealed by Alahayam. The meat that Hamashiach spoke about is the spiritual food that only mature believers can ingest. Spiritual milk is for new believers, but the meat is for those who are maturing and matured in their relationship with Him. They are matured and maturing in their faith in Him. Now, this idea of being sealed is not limited to the northern kingdom and the 144,000 saints, but the southern kingdom also needs to be sealed. We will be sealed. And this sealing will separate us from the rebels in our midst, and it will bring us into covenant with Alahayam, and it also will bring us under His protection. Remember what I said earlier. I don't need to tell you what you need to do in these last days, because Alahayam himself will tell you what He wants you to do, just like He told me what He wanted me to do. But like I said before again, only those that are in covenant with Him will He bring under His protection in these last days, until He brings us out, delivering us and taking us into His kingdom. Whether it's the heavenly kingdom above for the southern kingdom, or the earthly kingdom below, which is our land of Yashrael, for the northern kingdom. As Hamashiach has said, many are called, but few are chosen. Chosen because we choose to walk in obedience, which will lead us to walking in righteousness and holiness. The two powerful, or the most powerful divine attributes of Alahayam, Father, Son, and Ruach HaKodesh. Righteousness and holiness. And listen, you can't be drinking spiritual milk forever. And a lot of us just want to sip on milk because it is so convenient to just drink milk. How are you going to mature if you're not eating the meat of the word? The substance that grows, helps us to grow in faith, to become righteous and holy before Him. How are we going to be standing on our own 2 feet and making the right decisions to serve Him and Him alone? We're not to be relying on others to feed us. That's the mistake that a lot of our brethren are doing. We're relying on a man or a woman to feed us. Anything that you hear coming from a person's mouth should be either confirmation of what you've already learned, or something for you to go and dig into and find out for yourself, to get your own manna, your own daily bread, fresh from heaven, and stop depending on people with their regurgitated garbage. Because that's what a lot of it is. I've searched and I'm looking for people that are speaking revelation, truth. And they're all spinning the same story, but with a little twist here and there. But it's the same story. Same second Exodus that they're all talking about. 12 tribes going into the wilderness. Some going on ships. They're all teaching things that are either not truthful or not relevant. All right? You need to get into the word of Alahayam to allow Him to mature you as a believer, so that you're not dependent on someone to teach you anything. There's nothing wrong with people teaching the word of Alahayam if they're teaching it. Because we need teachers today. We've always needed teachers. But the problem is, if you are solely dependent on that person to be fed spiritually, you're going to be misled and you will perish. And that's not how you grow anyway. That's not how you grow. It's one thing to say that you are learning and this person is guiding you to the scriptures, to your Bible studies. That's one thing. That's great. That's awesome. But if you are solely dependent on everything that this person is saying to help you to grow spiritually, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Just like the Most High told Masha when he gave them instruction for them to go and collect the manna, it's the same instruction for us to go before the Most High to get our daily bread. That's why Hamashiach gave us that prayer. Give us this day our daily bread. We need to come to him and pray to him for our daily bread. Can't get it out of someone else. You only can get it from him. All right. Now this sealing is also showing that the northern kingdom will now be in covenant. Oh, sorry. That's the wrong place. Let's go look at Shamawath chapter 8 verse 22. And I will sever in that day the land of Goshen in which my people dwell. That's the children of Yashrael. Back in the days of Matzarayam when they were dwelling in Egypt. That no swarms of flies shall be there, to the end you may know that I am Yahweh in the midst of the earth. And I will put a division between my people and your people. My people Yashrael and your people Matzarayam. Tomorrow shall this sign be. So he is going to separate his people out of this earth. And he's starting. He has already started. The sealing is also showing that the northern kingdom will now be in covenant with Alahayam, upholding in entirety their end of the covenant with him while in the wilderness and enduring without complaining, unlike our forefathers. Let's look at Shamawath chapter 19 verse 3. And Masha went up unto Alahayam, and Yahweh called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shall you say to the house of Yaakov, and tell the children of Yashrael, You have seen what I did unto Matzarayam, and how I bare you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. So out of all the earth, he chose Yashrael to be his peculiar treasure to keep covenant with him. That's why I said before that only those that are in covenant with him will be delivered. All those people telling you you don't need to keep the commandments, you don't need to keep the Shabbat, all these different things, they are misleading you. Here's the proof. He is only regathering those who will be in covenant with him, even while we are in the lands of our captivity, because he said in the prophecies that even while we're in the lands of our captivities, he will be to us a small sanctuary, a little sanctuary. That's in Ezekiel. So because we are in the land of our captivity and we're awakened, doesn't mean that we ignore the covenant and we ignore the commandments because he is still here with us. We cannot worship to the extent that our forefathers worshiped, but we can still keep the commandments. We can still keep Shabbat. We may not be able to keep the feast days the way how he wants them to be kept, because first of all, we don't even know how to keep them. But we have an idea how to keep the Shabbat, right? And we can still observe the festivals and treat them as Shabbat. Because that's what they are, yearly Shabbat. And when we do that by faith, trusting in him that when we are gathered together with him, that he will teach us the fullness of how to keep these festivals and his Shabbat, then he will honor us by delivering us. Don't listen to those foolish ones out there misguiding you. All right. Shamawath, I said that. Verse 6. And you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. This is what he is speaking about even here in Shamawath and all the way through to Revelation. What did he say that we will be? Kings and priests, rulers and priests. This is what he wants for his people, to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which you shall speak unto Habanai ol Yashrael. And Masha came and called for the elders of the people and laid before their faces all these words which Yahweh commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, all that Yahweh have spoken, we will do. That's what they said 3 times. And Masha returned the words of the people unto Yahweh. Our forefathers did not keep their end of the covenant when they were in the wilderness. Now this time around, the northern kingdom will keep their end of our covenant with Alahayam. So the righteous remnant that are coming out of the northern kingdom, they'll keep their end of the bargain. They will say together, all that Yahweh have spoken we will do. And they will mean it. And they will walk in it. And that's why he is going to preserve them. And he's going to make the land before them to be like the garden of Odan. He's going to do all those things for them. Give them manna, all the water, the sweet water that they can drink. They will have no fear of the enemies around them trying to get to them. Can't get to them. Can't get close at all. Because they're going to be surrounded by fire. Fire is going to go before them and a flame behind them. They're going to be preserved. Okay, so let me read that again. It will be at this time that the northern kingdom will be walking in the fulfillment of the prophecy of Joel. Remember what I said in the beginning? That I will come back to this book, the book of Joel chapter 2, at the ending of this study. So yes, we're at the ending. Blow you the trumpet in Sion and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of Yahweh comes, for it is near at hand. A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains. A great people and a strong. So now you see, now we see why they will be a great and strong people, because of all the things that they've been through, and they came through with flying colors, the remnant, the righteous remnant. Now they can be declared as a great people and a strong. When I first read it, you could not compute that. You cannot understand that. But after I've taken you the sequence of events where the northern kingdom have to go through and how they have to learn to trust and have faith in Alahayam and Hamashiach, now we see them as they're marching through the wilderness in their orderly fashion. All right? To be a great and a mighty people. And look what he says here. There has not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after them. They said it, but it's referring to them. Even to the years of many generations. So these people that are coming out from the northern kingdom, once they made it through the wilderness, this is what they're going to be. A mighty people. A great people. Oh my. Listen, when all we have to do is reflect to the Old Testament, our forefathers, how mighty in battle they've been when Hamashiach went before them, when they were worshiping Alahayam, Yahweh. How he fought the battles for them. They were so mighty. They were only 300. And they can take down armies in the hundreds of thousands. Why? Because Alahayam went ahead of them and destroyed them. And even if they were in actual battle, they can still take people down without losing one of them in the battle. Not one of them will fall in the battle. This is how mighty our people were in the olden days, our forefathers in the wilderness, and even in our land. When they went out to battle, they went out to win, as long as they were in covenant with Alahayam, because they were mighty, mighty people. Now, if you ever get a chance, read the book of Jubilees, read the book of Jasher. Those two books give you the historical events of our forefathers, starting from the children, the 12 sons of Yaakov, the mighty men of valor they were. They were like superhumans. I'm not joking. They were strong. They were so strong. They were mighty. And going to the scriptures, the book of Chronicles, when Dawid had his when he was hiding from Saul, when he gathered his army together and they were in hiding from Saul, his men were mighty men. So was Dawid. They were mighty men. These men can cut down, one man can cut down hundreds of people. Now, I might be exaggerating, they might be 100 people. But I'm sure there are more than 100 people that one man can cut down. I'm sure I read that there was one man that can cut down men in the hundreds. They can cut them down. This is how mighty our people are when we are in Alahayam and he is in us and we are walking in his strength and in his power and in his might. When we're walking with his spirit flowing through us, there's only victory for us. Only victory. He can't lose, therefore we can't lose. Verse 3, a fire devours before them, and behind them a flame burns. The land is as the garden of Odan before them. The land is like the garden of Odan before them. This is not the garden of Odan, but it's like the garden of Odan because there's going to be plenty of trees, fruit-bearing trees, shelter trees, all kinds of vegetations before them. And behind them a desolate wilderness. So this garden of Odan likeness is going to be going with them. That's what they're going to be walking in. Even though there's wilderness all around them, but they're walking in the garden all the way home. And nothing shall escape them. Nothing will prevent them, the righteous remnant, to be delivered. That's what that statement means. Now, I use this prophecy at the beginning of this study, but it rightfully is placed at the latter end of the northern kingdom's exodus. And this is showing us that the righteous remnant of the northern kingdom have persevered, and now they are walking as a great and mighty people all the way to our land. The seventh trumpet will sound, marking this momentous event. The northern kingdom is finally home. Hallelujah. 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 And these are the people now that the Most High can work with to bring us back to be one kingdom of 12 tribes again. There'll be not one of us that will be prideful, that will be wanting to be bigger and better than anyone else, to lord over one another. Pride. No, we will all be submissive to Alahayam. And we'll all be walking in righteousness and holiness. There will not be any selfishness. No self-glorification. No self-righteousness. No pride. None of that were in our people before. All those qualities, those evil qualities that were in our people before, no, will not be existing in the righteous remnant. And now we can be called kings and priests of Alahayam. Okay, so let's look at the diagram I have here to help you to see it at a glance. We know this is the latter part of the 7 years, the last 3.5 years, and we have the 6th seal that opens, and of course the great earthquake that will cause the NWO to be devastated. And at the same time, the two witnesses, not at the same moment or the same time. All right, got to be careful of what I'm saying. But not too long later, the two witnesses will be placed in the land of Yashraal to start their prophesying of judgments, the judgment prophecies. And that's at the 3.5 year mark, going towards the 7th year. And that's at the 1,260 days. 45 days later, we have the 7th seal that will open. And this, I have underneath there the 1,335 days. If you go back to my previous videos, you'll see how that all lines up. From the very beginning, even before the Southern Kingdom is taken, very beginning when the UN, bring out their mandates that will bring some sort of persecution against the Southern Kingdom, that's when you can start those 1,335 days. After the 7th seal is opened, 45 minutes later, the Northern Kingdom will begin their exodus. All this I've already discussed in my previous video, okay? Now, trumpets 1 to 4, the Northern Kingdom will have to endure, meaning they have to go through them, but not meaning that they're going to actually hurt them. No, because they'll be preserved. But like I said, and I've explained before, the fact that they have to go through them and see and witness all these different things that are happening around them, it will stir up something in them to either trust in Alahayam and continue on the path that He's laid out before them, or to run and hide, look for shelter, preserve yourself. That's self-preservation. That has nothing to do with Alahayam. That means that you don't trust him to preserve you and protect you. You want to protect yourself, so you run off, and that's where you're going to be killed. And that's why they have to go through it, to weed out the weaklings, the rebels. Now at the fifth trumpet, so this is trumpets 1 to 4, the northern kingdom have to endure. By the fifth trumpet, the northern kingdom will be sealed, because we know those are the locusts coming out of the bottomless pit to sting everyone on the earth. Everyone is going to get bitten by these things. From that point, there's a rise of the New World Order again, the NWO, but this is the reformed one. This is the last rising of this kingdom, and it's going to be ran by Azazel. He is going to be the Satan that is going to possess this kingdom. He's the one that was locked away. Again, I spoke about him, I believe, in part 1 and also in part 2 of this study. But now he's going to be the Satan that will possess this NWO reformed. And we know that this particular NWO is going to be the one that is going to kill the 2 witnesses. And we're going to see that in the last study. The last study is called The 2 Witnesses, and it's going to look at that, not quite in detail, but more about the sequence of events that will happen around them, before and after them. And now at the very end, on the 7th, I should have had written there 7 years, we have the 6th and 7th trumpets blowing close together. So you have the 6th trumpet that is blown, and then not too long later we'll have the 7th trumpet blown. And now when we get to the trumpet judgments in the book of Revelation, we'll see how that all plays out. But just know that they're going to be blown close together. The northern kingdom will make it home by the 7th trumpet. And at the same time, we have the fulfillment of the 400-year prophecy. That 400 years that we've been hearing about. Oh yeah, we were slaves in 1619, so 2019 is our deliverance, is the anniversary of our 400 years. No, it is not. That's why we're still here. So when the northern kingdom makes it home, that means the 400 years, the 400-year prophecy is fulfilled, and at the same time, the 6,000 years are completed. Now you're asking, but wait a second, how come the 6,000 years are completed here and not at the ending of the vials? Well, stay tuned to find the answer to that in the next and final study. I will answer that question and show you what is going to happen and why it's going to happen. All right, but this is how this is the graph, the chart that is laid out, and for the 400-year prophecy, 6,000 year, and the seventh year, all converging together at that point of time. All right. Now, I don't want to mean it as a mystery. I've already kind of answered it previously, but I'm not going to go into it because it's almost like I'm extending the lesson, extending the study. I will explain it in the next study, which is part 4, called The 2 Witnesses. All right. So with that, I want to say this is the ending of part 3. I am so loving this study. I have learned so much. Don't think that I have had this information for a while and I'm now presenting it. No, this is something that he's recently taught me. He's just recently revealed all this stuff to me. I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm so blown away. Sometimes I gotta walk away from the computer and just marinate. I just, it's, I just have to marinate. I got to just like not think anymore. Not okay. Let me just marinate on what you've just taught me because it is so awesome. What is going to happen to us as a people is such an awesome, um, not event, but an awesome experience that is going to lead to an even more awesome life, eternal with Him. And we can't ask for anything more. You see, and that's why more and more I'm realizing I don't care about the things of this earth. I don't care about the clothes on my back. I don't care about the food that I eat. I don't care. Those things are becoming even less and less important to me. I've been studying the Gospels again, starting with the book of Matthew. And as I'm reading, I realize when, they call them the Beatitudes, blessed or the peacemakers, for they should be called the children of Alahayam, those kind of, those teachings, chapters 5, 6, and 7. And the word that came to my mind is the word stripped. Stripped. As I went through the Beatitudes, I realized that, you know what? He's given us these Beatitudes, this way of which how we ought to be operating on this earth, how we ought to be living on this earth. And it's not one of you need to apologize to me because you hurt my feelings, or you have done me wrong so you need to make the amends. No. It's quite the opposite. Someone does something wrong to you, even if it's a brethren, especially if it's a brethren, you need to turn the other cheek. You need to love those who hate you and forgive. All these things. And I'm thinking, okay, now self would say, no, if someone does me wrong, I need to take revenge. I need to avenge myself. I need to prove that they were wrong and make sure that they apologize and make the amendments, all that stuff. And he's telling me, no, you don't do any of that. If someone takes you to the court and sues you for your robe, for your robe, you give him his cloak too. You give him your cloak as well. If someone bids you to go a mile, go 10 miles. Peter asked him, how many times shall I forgive my brother? 7 times? And he said, no. Try 70 times 7. And it's not like I've never read these scriptures before. But suddenly I realize all the things that he has been teaching us, that he taught his disciples, goes against our sin nature, because our sin nature wants to defend itself in order to preserve itself, in order to strengthen itself in our lives, to strengthen ourselves against us, strengthen itself against us. And who operates within our sin nature is Satan himself, his minions. And so when we surrender to our sin nature to react the way how we want to react, then we're giving strength to the evil powers. But when we surrender to Alahayam and say, you know what, let me just shake this off, it's okay, it's all good. You feel that way? Bless you. Bless you. If I've said something to offend you, to make you angry, I'm sorry. Even though you may have spoken the truth, but you offended your brother, I'm sorry. And this is one thing that I've learned. that he is grooming us to be his kings and priests, so that we can be in covenant with him, to be like him. He said, be holy, for I am holy. So when we read Matthew chapter 6, 5, 6, and 7, those are the tools by which he wanted us to live by, to be his people, to be a peculiar treasure, to be unlike any people on this earth, because all other people want to take offense. And when they look at us, they will say, you're a fool. You're a fool. You don't speak up for yourself. You don't defend yourself. But that's all right, because if being foolish is going to get me into the kingdom, let me be foolish all the way home. I have no love for this world, and neither should you. Okay, I want to finish with the Alahayam, chapter 6, Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 24 to 26. Yabarakak Yahweh wa Yashamarak. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. Ya'ar Yahweh panayo alayak wa yachanak. May Yahweh cause his face to shine upon you and have favor upon you. Yasha'a Yahweh panayo alayak wa yosham la shalom. May Yahweh lift up his face upon you and give you peace. And I too will say to you, Shalom, Shalom. All praises to the Most High. Abba Yah.